Hi everyone, my name is Hijab Chaudhry, and I'm joined by Jessica Turan Salazar, our CalTeach student advisor. We'll be talking about the basic features that you need to enable to have a successful Zoom session for your workshop. So to get started, we'll go to sign into your main Zoom account. In the first part of this tutorial, I'll just go through some of the settings that as a host you have to have enabled on your Zoom account. And then Jessica will cover how your actual Zoom would look like after those settings have been made. So once you log into Zoom, this is what usually comes up. And you can go ahead and click on Settings. Under Settings, you'll see all of these different tools that you can enable as part of your Zoom account. So for the host video, this is optional for you to turn it on. You can leave it off if you plan on going in manually and turning that feature on once you have your room ready. But always have the participants video turned off when they're entering in, just so there's no disruption as your students are joining in your session. For audio type, making sure you have the telephone and computer audio selected. Always keep the join before host setting off, as participants should not be allowed to join the session before you're in there, since if you need to plan ahead with your co-hosts or kind of figure the details out, you have that option to do so before your participants join in. And for the meeting ID, this will be the link you'll be sharing out with your students for them to join your Zoom room. As we go down, you can go ahead and enable the require a password for your personal meeting ID. What this will do is send them a passcode along with your personal meeting ID link. And those are just steps to take to avoid any kind of disruptions or Zoom bombings during your session. A Zoom bombing is when a hacker joins into your Zoom session and disrupts the classroom. So it's just better to take those precautions and security measures so your workshop session is protected. You can also go ahead and click yes for the requiring a password for scheduling new meetings. And when you click on that, it should turn blue. If any of these options are turned blue, that means that's enabled on your main Zoom room, and those toolbars would be available for you to access in your actual Zoom room. As we go down the list, making sure you have this category turned on, unmuting your participants upon entry. This again goes along with just having everyone sign in and getting settled into your classroom, just so there are no video and audio disruptions as you're starting up your workshop for the day. You can also set up a meeting reminder if you have the type of workshops that are week-long workshops and you want your students to know when the workshop is happening every day. Always make sure that the chat icon is open as well. This will allow your participants to type in their questions throughout the session and be able to communicate with you if you don't want them to have their audios on during your session. Another icon that you should have enabled on your settings is the co-host icon. And this is for instructors that are working with another instructor for their sessions. You can always have this icon on, so whoever else is the co-host has the ability to share their screen or mute participants if there's too much disruption going on, or share out the link if there are any issues with that. The polling option allows you to host any kind of surveys and make your Zoom sessions more interactive with the students that you're working with. And the screen sharing option, making sure that only the hosts are able to share it. Again, this will help in any kind of disruptions that might be caused by participants who are not familiar with Zoom. And for the last few things that you should have enabled in your Zoom session, if you were wondering on how to have breakout rooms for your Zoom sessions, you would have to turn this icon on under your settings. And what this will do is it will allow you to put your students in groups for any kind of discussion sessions that you have planned throughout your workshop. And this is really easy to do, and Jessica will go over that in a few minutes. But this allows you to manage uh, a larger participant base. Let's say if you have 30 students in your Zoom session, the breakout room will allow you to put them into different groups so they can have smaller group discussions and bring it back to the main Zoom session and discuss it with the instructors. And lastly, we have the virtual backgrounds. When you enable this, this will allow you to have a cool virtual background in the back. If it doesn't work for your computer because it is an older model or the software is not working, that's totally fine. Just making sure you're picking a neutral background for running all your sessions throughout the summer. And lastly, we have the waiting room option. And you have to make sure as a host that you have this option enabled. What this will allow you to do is make sure that the participants who are joining in your session are the ones who have actually signed up for the session and are not any kind of Zoom bombers or someone who's not supposed to be a part of the session. And for this option, you can choose all participants, and we'll view a screen later that shows us how that screen looks like when participants are joining in. And as a host, you have the option of having them enter into the classroom. And let's say for any reason your participants are knocked out of the Zoom session, they can always come back in, and you will know that this is the participant that's supposed to be part of your session, and you can just add them back into your Zoom call. And I will now hand it off to Jessica, who will kind of just cover how your Zoom link will look like once you have all these tools enabled.
Hi everyone, so now as Hijab mentioned, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what it looks like once you're actually at your session. So when you open up your session, this is a little bit what it's going to look like. Since you, as Hijab mentioned, you would have enabled the waiting room, all your participants will be over here in the right side. So here it says, for example, that I'm a participant and I'm in the waiting room. So you can either admit them or remove them. Once you admit them, you can always remove them if maybe you added them on accident or they're not meant to be there. And then it'll tell you who's already in the meeting. So that's kind of what it looks like. So icons to know, and I'm gonna go over what Hijab was talking about earlier. So as she mentioned, when you click that button in the settings when you're creating your meeting, then you can make sure that everyone is muted. If you decide maybe you want to give them an opportunity to talk, then there's this button here where either you can mute yourself or you can unmute everyone. Again, we recommend not to unmute everyone. We recommend for you to really use that chat room. That's really going to help keep control of the classroom. Here, this little video one is where you turn on and turn off your camera. You're also allowed to turn everyone's on and everyone's off. And then, sorry, let's go back. Here you'll have a total number of participants. Here you can see, this is the chat room that I was talking about. If you click here, you'll see all of the chat. As Hijab mentioned, this is a great place for you to ask students to respond to your questions. It's also really helpful if you want them to visit a particular website, then you can just add it on there, and then students can click on it and then be directed there. This little green icon is where you do your screen sharing. So when you do screen sharing, it's kind of what you guys see right now. I'm screen sharing a Google Slides, and so students are able to see what is on your screen. And making sure that you put this setting so that only you are able to do that, as Hijab mentioned, just so that you don't have any disruptions. We also have the polling icon that Hijab mentioned, just for you can ask questions for your students and then they can respond, and you can get kind of a better idea of where they're at in certain topics, or if just a random hello everyone, what's your name type of thing. This is the record button. You don't really have to worry about this because for all your sessions, either Hijab or myself will be present, and we will be making sure that everything is either being recorded, not being recorded. And then the breakout rooms icon that Hijab touched, you click here and it'll take you to this. And this is where you can make different breakout groups so that students can separate and have discussion and then bring them back. Depending on how many participants you have, you can create how many rooms you want. You can either do it automatically, or you can or randomly, and you can specifically put people there. So that's pretty much all we have for you guys. If you have any specific questions, always feel free to reach out to Hijab or myself if you run into any problems when you're creating your meetings, making sure that everything is running smoothly so that on the first day you're good to go.